Good morning. This is a guide on the CQ50 series provisioning tool. In this case, we're going to provision a single phone. We'll take a look at how it works, what ports need to be open both locally and remotely, and kind of just some new features to the provisioning tool that you might find useful. So for the first thing you're going to do is create your extensions. So in this case, I've created 3 extensions. One thing to make note of is when you're creating an extension, I'll go into one right now, is you want to make sure that this is linked to the user in User Manager. There is a way to create extensions that does not do this, and that will kind of foil. You can fix it later, but especially if you're going to be using the quick create extension. So let's just say you do quick create, 203. Let's say mark. If you go to this next page, this right here, right, create User Manager user. You do want to leave that to yes, because the user manager module does affect the permissions associated with this user. That's one of the benefits to the 50 series provisioning tool. It's all tightly tied together to the entire system as opposed to being separate. So I'll just go ahead and finish making this extension here. So once you finish making your extensions, and they have all of their user managers are all set up there, at that point we're going to hop into the provisioning tool and make some templates. So you can find the provisioning tool under the Settings tab, CQ Devices. If you do not see this, it's either because you have an older system and it's not on it, or it could be potentially a permissions issue. So if you're looking for it, go under Admin, go into Administrators. On the right, you can see all of your users. So the PBX admin is CQ's typical login. The admin is, what we've kind of pared down. A lot of the modules just aren't ones that we use. So we pare them down to make the admin user. So you can see these are the selected modules, and these are the ones you're not viewing right now, just because they're not really necessary. If you ever want to see a module, you simply click and drag it and carry it over. So if you don't see it, look for this in the modules. That device is, the module is known as clearly devices. So you want to take it and drag it over, submit it. And then at that point, you probably have to log out in the upper right-hand corner and log back in, and you should see it under the settings, either as CQ devices or clearly devices. They're kind of synonymous in terms of the phones. So if we go to settings and CQ devices, the first place you want to go is module settings. This is where you're basically laying the foundation to program your phones. So if you click on module settings, this kind of tells you, number one, where are you going to get your information for the provision and the phone apps. The phone apps are like parking lots, emergency, silent call button, and a lot of other features in the phones. So you can leave this as 2579, that's fine. Go to provisioning, 2580. So those are the ports that are used. If you're local, if your phones are local to your phone system, you don't need to worry about those ports because you're local to the phone system. You don't have to worry about port forwarding. If your phones are remote, you need to forward that port to your phone system, TCP. So if you want the phones, those remote phones, to get button changes, be sure you have 2580 TCP forwarded to your phone system. And I would just set this as HTTPS to create a little bit of security here for your provisioning. I know on previous videos we've changed this to 84. I would not change that anymore. I would just leave this as 2580. You can go to your phone apps, 2579. If you want to change that to HTTPS, you can do that as well. But the provisioning is probably the most important of all of them to make sure you have HTTPS, and there's the self-generated username and password. Okay, so we're going to go down here and hit submit. At that point, on the far right, okay, I'm going to start with my template. So template is kind of the overarching. You can create multiple templates. You don't have to create just one. So I'm just going to call this global. And then there's a wide variety of things you can change. Admin username, admin password. Default is admin. So in this case, it puts a series of numbers in there. Do you want to turn on resyncing? How often? Now look at this right here, provisioning protocol, it's set to use module settings. So it's taking that information that I just set in the module settings. So I don't have to reprogram that. If I go to phone settings, way more features in terms of what you can control from the phone system here and what you can control. And these are going to automatically go to the phone when you make changes. Backlight, call waiting, um, ringtones, transfer mode. If you ever want to know what they are, simply hover over the question mark and it'll give you an idea of what you're talking about here. You can change your time zone here on your phones. So I'll just set this for Detroit. How time is showing up. You can do VLANs. If you're kind of sharing a network with the computers and the IT guy wants you to be on your own VLAN, you can do that here as well. You can set up your Wi-Fi if you're deploying Wi-Fi phones, which would be just the 650s. So let's go back here and I'm going to submit this. All right, so there's my template. And if I click on my menu here, I can see it right there. The next step is to actually program some buttons. So I'm going to go to my add model layout. And in this case, I'm using a 250 phone. I have one programmed or sitting here next to me. So once we choose this, right, this 250, right, all we need to do is, oh, there we go. Click on the model description. So we'll just call this CQ test. You can change your background image right here. So you don't have to do that phone by phone. And then you just click on line keys. I don't think you need me to walk you through every line key, but I did want to show you a couple of neat features. So number one is you're going to see all these Clearly apps. So Clearly apps parking. And then you can combine this with a park key. So what's going to happen here is the customer is going to press the park key, and that's going to send that call into a lot. Now, most of you are used to, once you have a park key, you're going to go to BLF, you're going to go to lot 71, value 71, then you're going to make another BLF, you're probably going to call it lot 72, value 72, and you might make 3 or 4 of these. And in essence, you've just used 4 or 5 keys just for parking. And those keys will turn red when someone's parked. You've used park keys before. The benefit of this Clearly apps parking is once you park a call, they all go into this button right here. If you click on this button, it's going to show you every call that's parked with caller ID and how long they've been parked. So that's a big benefit, and you don't need then individual parking lot keys. You can scroll through, pick up the call you want. Another thing I wanted to show you was some of you have asked, what is this BLF linked? Well, one of the benefits of BLF is, let's just say you've got extension 201 and you're going to monitor Sean. I forget if that's the actual label for 201, but it doesn't actually matter. So this key will turn red or green based on if Sean's using the phone or not. If you go and change Sean, Sean leaves, replaced by Spencer. You then have to go to all of your templates and change them in your templates as well. That's kind of a hassle. So what you can do, as opposed to using a BLF key, which you have to then go back and change, you can do BLF linked. So if you do BLF linked, now it gives you a list of your extensions. So if I choose Sean, this is going to monitor your programming, and if you change the name of 201, it will change here as well for you. So once again, making less work for you. And you can do this with a few things. You can do this with conference bridges, find me, follow me, presence. You've got a silent call. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We're introducing a button where you can, have an emergency call. But here's where you program all of your buttons. So you can go down through 12 of them for the 250. And if we submit, there's going to be our 250. And we should be able to, at this point, click over here, and there it is right there. And if we want to clone it, we can clone it. And let me close this right here. And I also clone it from up here. So once you make one, you can clone it and then use it for other models. So you could actually make a 250 and clone it and turn it into a 650 and then program the rest of the keys. So a lot of benefits there. At this point, you've created all of your buttons. You've made your extensions. Your time, it's ready to tell the phone to come get the files. So let's go to the phone. Here's the phone I have plugged in. I'm going to take this MAC address, and I'm going to go back to the phone. and I'm going to click on device mapping. So right now we've got no connections. So literally 0 files are made. You plug in any phone, nothing's going to happen. So we're going to add mapping. Press this for as many extensions as you want to add. So we're going to connect this to 200. We're going to choose our global template, and then you can just paste the MAC in here. You don't need to get rid of the colons. Just leave them here. The system will take care of that for you. Choose your model. So there's our CQ test, and then hit submit. All right, so now inside the system, if you could see inside the system, you would see a file for this MAC address. Notice how it took out all the colons for us. We don't have to worry about that. So now the question is, does the phone know where the files are? Right now, this phone does not. If you're doing a simply hosted and you're working with CQ, we will, on the back end, we can tell all of the phones to go to your system because we're in control of the hosted system. So it can be, and it should be, kind of a plug and play for you for the simply hosted. If you're using a local server, that's not going to happen. The nice thing is if you remember the old days of Option 66 and having to remember your provisioning server and all that sort of stuff, it was hard to remember the quotations to use there. But if we come back here to your global template, at the top, it will tell you exactly what your provisioning URL is. So I'm going to copy that. Don't copy the quotations. Okay. So notice where this is. This is telling the phone to look at this address, right? That's the address of the phone system. There's your HTTPS username and password, so it's protected. And there's the port, 2580. So if I copy this, now this step is only if CQ is not helping you with the simply hosted and telling the phones where to go. In this case, it's a manual. So click on management, and I'll log back in. If you click on management and then click on auto provision, you can see this one right here, config server path. All right, so this is the phone is where it should be looking for its files. So I'm going to get rid of that and paste. Now, once again, if you don't have 2580 open in your port, if it's a remote phone in your firewall, it's not going to get it. If it says simply hosted install, we're in control of the firewall. Obviously, we're expecting phones to connect, but we need to know where it's connecting from. We don't open 2580 to the entire internet. So I'm going to scroll down here. I'm going to hit save. Now at this point, you don't actually have to do a full reboot. Just at the bottom of this screen, or the middle of the screen, I should say, I'm just going to hit auto provision now. And if I scroll over and look at this phone, it says provisioning, please wait, and give it a second or two. And pretty soon the screen will flash to provisioning success, and that phone will come and get its files and program itself. So a few things to make note of here, kind of a troubleshooting. Let me walk you through some troubleshooting. If the phone's not getting its files, or if it's saying, provisioning failed, sort of a thing, what are some things you want to look at? Number one, if you're using option 66 locally, for some reason you've got an old router, you can press no to override server. That's only if you feel like you're using option 66 locally from a previous install, maybe. And then you can come down here and hit auto provision again and see it, look at the phone, see what it's going to say, see if it comes back with auto provision now, or provisioning, please wait, and it'll come back with a message, provision success. It'll get its files, and boom, off it goes. Two other things I wanted to show you in terms of troubleshooting and how you can kind of see what's happening here. If we come back to our phone system and go to dashboard, right? This one right here, CQ devices daemon. You want to make sure that's running. It has a green check mark there. That is kind of what's making the files on the back end. And if you see a red X there, that in that case, your phone is probably not going to provision. So just the green check mark should be there. If it's not, contact us. We can get that back up and running for you. The other place you can look to see kind of what's happening on the back end of your phone is under reports, * log files. Right, this is just kind of troubleshooting. some of you are used to using the full asterisk log files to look for maybe why a call failed or why a call went to voicemail, sort of a thing. But with the new module, if you click on the file type, at the top you see clearly devices out. So you click on that, and this is going to show you all of the features that are all of the phones that are starting to provision with your phone system. And you can search this by the MAC address of the phone that you're doing, and you should be able to see that phone starting to connect to your server. If you don't, that phone's not provisioning. So, two places to look. Number one, see if your clearly devices, server in the back end is running, and then come to this outlog, and sometimes you'll see something like, wrong username and password, meaning the phone just not talking to the server correctly. Um, if you're still not having success, every once in a blue moon, I don't see this as much anymore, is I sometimes see intrusion detection causing an issue. You can come here, you can hit stop, and then you can try to have that phone provision again. So it's not often I see that. Um, it was more early on that I saw that, not as much anymore. But those are three places to look if you find your phone's not provisioned and you're sure your port's open. If 2580 is not open, that phone's not going to provision. That's where it's going to go try to find it. So that's the general tool. One of the big benefits to this is, once you're done and the phone's provisioned, you can come back to your template, and this is true for local or remote phones, really any phones. You can come back here, you can change your global template, you can change your button keys, whatever you want, and within 10 or 15 seconds, that phone is going to get the changes, and it's not going to need to reboot. So that's a big benefit you don't have to go around and reboot phones. The settings, especially because in this one right here, under your global, you told the phone to resync. It's going to be looking for changes. All right, any changes you make to passwords, Wi-Fi, time zone, transfer buttons, that phone's going to automatically get and change for you. So that's the key to the tool. If you have any questions, please contact CQ Simple. Have a great day.